So good evening and welcome to the Brookfield Zoning Commission regular meeting. Today is November 9th, 2023. The time is 7 p.m. This meeting is being held in Town Hall Room 133. Please rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I would please ask all the commissioners to introduce themselves, starting with my far left.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Vishendra Kumar, Vice Chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Thank you. Next item up on our agenda would be number 2, enforcement, the zoning enforcement officer's report. Mr. Lally, would you like to do that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 47 High Ridge Road, DeSalis residence. There's a trial date set for November 30th. I did inspect the site today with the town attorney, and there's been minimal change at the property. So that's going to move forward on that. So after November 30th, I'll have another update as to the status of that property. 2 Yankee Drive, Muscalito residence. I've been working with the applicant. He's trying to work his way through the OpenGov system, the permit system. He's moving the shed, but he is trying to submit an application in, so I am working with him on that. He's been very communicative the past couple days, and he's trying to get this resolved, so once that's resolved, I'll advise the commission and remove it from the report. 153 Pocono Road, the property right there. Complaint came into the Brookfield Land Use Office about running a business out of the property. I inspected the property. It's a commercial roofing business. There's anywhere from probably 10 to 15 vehicles parked there on a daily basis. They're using the back garage for storage. They're in and out all day long. They have all kinds of roofing equipment outside. There's vehicles all over the place, boats in the backyard, places really eyesore for the neighbors. So I sent a notice of violation, and I'm waiting a response from the property owner. He's going to have to move that business to a commercial zone. So 31 Green Knoll Drive, all the commissioners have a letter from Attorney Marcus. Both myself and Ms. Barkowski, we met with Attorney Marcus and the property owner, Mr. McGovern, on that. He is willing to work. He did submit tickets for more of the material, truck tickets. He did do testing on the property. He's waiting for the results. I'm told that he will have them on Monday. So they are willing to move forward and trying to move forward once I get more information on the testing of the materials and the samples and how it looks. I can advise the commission. And we did visit the site. Everything is stable out there right now. There's actually grass growing and everything. So the owner is working with us, as is Attorney Marcus. So.
Mr. Lally, if I may, I just had one question. On the letter, the date is June 16th. Is that correct? Because I thought this was recent.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
welcome.
Yeah, that's.
Check that.
I will reach out to Attorney Marcus first thing in the morning tomorrow.
Thank you.
And address this issue. So, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
You're welcome.
That just literally came in at about 5 o'clock tonight, so. 327 Candle Lake Road, Lakeville Towing. I did send the cease and desist. I haven't received a response. Being away for the week that I was away, I hadn't had a chance to get back out there, but I have not received any complaints, and I believe from Commissioner Armont, it's been quiet up there at this time.
Yes, I haven't seen any commercial vehicles up there
Okay, good.
recently.
Okay, well, I will keep an eye on it. I didn't do a cease and desist right away, because after going to the class, I learned that if you let the 30 days expire per the cease and desist. We can go right to the citation, and there's no appeal period.
Hmm.
So that's what I did, so. So I will continue to watch that, and obviously, if you see anything, please let me know.
Yes.
So. One Rachel Farm Road, the property right there, they were doing the filling. I did send the cease and desist. I actually posted it on the doors in the garage. I sent them the information on the paperwork to apply for the special permit, because they exceeded the 100 cubic yards, per the regulations, and they have not yet responded. So I will reach out to them again on Monday and get an update status for the commission. It is on my radar. So. 450 and 470 Federal Road, Menino Homes, Incorporated. I reached out to the property owner about a month and a half ago about the banners, the feather flags, and all the illegal signage out there. It's crazy over there. Did respond, he got it cleaned up, but now it's even worse than it was before. So I went right to a cease and desist order on this. I sent that out on November 1st, so I'm waiting a response to get that property all cleaned up, because it's ridiculous. Moving on to 7 and 756 Federal Road, Dunkin' Donuts, same exact thing. I reached out to the property owner about a month and a half ago. He had the banners and feather flags removed, and obviously they're all back out there again. So, again, I sent a cease and desist order on November 1st, waiting a response from the property owner to get them cleared out. If there's no response within the 30 days, I'll go right to a citation. 5 Stony Farm Lane, Rodriguez property. There's been no change on those construction debris that was dumped in the front, mafia blocks, broken up concrete. So I sent the cease and desist went out actually today. Waiting to hear, obviously I'll have 10 days upon receipt of the notice to hear back from them. If there's no action, I'll go to a citation on that one. 89 Wisconsin Road, my favorite. There's a remote status conference scheduled for 11/20/2023. I don't know what the judge's issue is here. He keeps on delaying everything, doesn't want to make a decision. He ruled in the town's favor. She's appealed it. She appealed it to appellate court. The appellate court sent it back down again. The town is good looking for the reimbursement now, the legal fees. So that's what we're waiting for him just to make a decision. So I don't know what his issue is or what's going on. And then 35 Hidden Brook Drive, again, that was deferred to the town attorney, and I don't have any current update on that one right now. So.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments for our zoning enforcement officer at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is number 3, review correspondence. Seeing none, we'll move to number 4, review the minutes of our previous meeting of October 26th, 2023. I believe everyone has gotten a copy of the minutes. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections related to the minutes?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Yes,
Mr. Lucio.
it has me listed as present, but I was absent.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing nothing further, the chair is prepared at this time to entertain a motion. Excuse me.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of our October 26th, 2023 meeting.
Second?
Oh, with the amendment?
With the amendment of making Mike absent rather than present?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Timmerman's made a motion. It's been seconded by Mr. Komar. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Motion carries. The minutes are approved with that one correction. Next item, number 5, continued public hearings. We have item A, 854 Federal Road, Z-23-51. Emily Mitchell of AR Building Company, 310 Seven Fields Boulevard, Suite 350, Seven Fields, Pennsylvania, for Edward and Kathleen McCarty, 226 Great Neck Road, Waterford, Connecticut. Proposed text amendment regarding Article 5.1. design flexibility in the TCD zone. The public hearing was continued until today at the request of the applicant, so I will just say the following, that this is a continued public hearing for 854 Federal Road, Z-23-51, which was opened on October 12th, 2023, and remains open to continue to accept any data bearing on this application. The public notice and rules still apply from the previous meeting, those general rules being that after accepting any data, I will ask for questions of clarification, followed by comments from those in favor, and finally comments from those in opposition. I believe, Mr. Lally, we've gotten some correspondence, though, in the
There is,
meantime.
Mr. Chairman, yes. Yeah, there's,
I'll ask Mr. Timmerman, if he doesn't mind, to read that into the record.
I think they're on the front cover.
Oh,
Right.
on the front. Oh, excellent. Letter from Christine Floberg, Friday, October 16th, to Amy Curran, notification of proposed text amendment, Westcog notification Z-23-51. To Amy from Kristen regarding this referral. Thank you for submitting the attached referral to Westcog. The opinion of Westcog staff is that the proposal is of local interest and with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. That's one of them. And second letter, to the Zoning Commission from Christine Murphy, Land Use Administrative Assistant, on behalf of the Planning Commission, dated November 3rd, 2023, regarding 854 Federal Road text amendment for Article 5.1.j, design flexibility. Please be advised that at the regular meeting of the Planning Commission held on November 2nd, 2023, the Commission made the following motion with regard to the above proposed text amendment referral request. A motion was made by Jay Mara to send a memo to the Zoning Commission stating that the Planning Commission has made a favorable referral with regard to the proposed text amendment, Article 5.1.j, design flexibility, as it is consistent with the spirit of the 2015 Plan of Conservation and Development. L. Taylor seconded the motion, which carried 3-1, 0 abstentions, with S. Dale opposing. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. That file. Refer to it. Thank you. So again, even though this is a continued public hearing, this will be the first time that the applicant will be able to speak relative to this. So once again, we'd like to have the members of the commission introduce themselves. So could we please do that again, starting with my far left?
Yes. Gwen Arment, alternate.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Vishendra Kumar, Vice Chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Thank you. At this time, we will ask the applicant to please rise and do a presentation. The presentation will be limited to 45 minutes. The chair will then entertain questions of clarification concerning the applicant's presentation. We'll hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Comments must be limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public will have one opportunity to speak during this segment of the hearing and may also submit their concerns in writing during the public hearing. During this segment, the commissioners may ask additional questions. The bylaws of the commission allow only for the presentation of similar positions in succession and preclude the intermixture of comments pro or con. All questions and comments must be directed through the chair. As you are recognized, please state your name and address so that your comments may be legally recorded. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. However, the commission is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application, and in view of the time constraints placed upon us, we ask for your indulgence in not reiterating comments previously presented. After the public comments are received, the applicant will have the opportunity to comment, and the time will then be limited to 10 minutes. Are there any questions? Okay, and the chair is now prepared to hear the applicant's presentation.
Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Emily Mitchell. I am the Vice President of Development with AR Building Company. For the record, my address is 310 Seven Fields Boulevard, Suite 50, Seven Fields, PA 16046. So thanks for having us here tonight. We have been in front of you for a few informal discussions about this, but really glad to be here with our full application for our text amendment to the Town Center District. So I'll start with a little background on who AR Building is, our experience in the area. I'll talk about what we're proposing for the site, and then I'll turn it over to our attorney, Bill Sweeney, who'll go more into detail on what our text amendment is and our ask is for you tonight. So AR Building Company is a 50-plus-year-old apartment development company. We're based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have one owner. He has no partners, no investors, family-owned business. He builds everything with his own equity. Right now, we have a portfolio of about 9,100 units. We're in 50 communities across 10 states. We're very active in Connecticut. We have 3 open communities and several others in development. We have 2 open communities in New London, Connecticut, another one in Groton. We're building 2 buildings in Meriden, Connecticut right now. We're about to get started in Newington, Connecticut, and we have one under construction right now in Brookfield. It's 100 units at 857 Federal Road, right across the street from the site that we're talking about tonight. AR Building builds everything for portfolio, so meaning we are not a developer who goes in and entitles a project and then sells it off, or builds a project and sells it off. We go into every project knowing that we're going to be the long-term owner and operator of our buildings. So we take that very seriously during the design phase and our construction phase. We know we're going to work with the town because we're going to be a long-term community member. We use sound design principles, good quality materials, good quality construction techniques, because we know ultimately we're going to be responsible for the ongoing maintenance of these buildings. We want it to look as good year 20, year 30 as it did when we opened. We're also fully integrated, so we buy, build, and manage all of our apartments. We buy the land and entitle it. That's my job. We build our projects, so I work very closely with our Vice President of Construction, Jeff Saris. He runs a team that acts as a general contractor for all of our projects. So that makes sure that we build them to all of our high standards, because again, we're going to be the ongoing maintenance responsible for that. And then we manage them all ourselves. So each of our apartment buildings has a full-time management staff, and all of those staff work directly for us. So if anybody at the town has any questions, you know, when we're entitling the project, but also when it's under construction, or even when it's up and running, I'm still your main point of contact. You can always reach out to me, and we'll get those questions, concerns resolved. You can go to the next slide, Bill. Here's just some examples of our recent project. The building there on the left is in our Reynolds Farm community. That's in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. I wanted to show you that in particular because this is very similar to the building we'll be proposing at 854 Federal Road. The 2 buildings on the right are in newly opened communities right outside of Pittsburgh. The one on the top right is Evergreen Apartments. That's in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. That's about 92 units. And then the one on the bottom right we just opened this summer. We're very proud of it. It's called the Regency. It's right outside of McKees, right outside of Pittsburgh in McKees Rock, Pennsylvania. You can see that we use a lot of brick, we use a lot of siding, we use large-scale windows that brings a lot of natural light into our units. We try to make sure that each of our units has a balcony or a patio, because we find that our residents really like having that outdoor space, but we find it also really helps break up the scale of our buildings, along with the kind of gable roofs that we integrate a lot. The materials are high quality. Again, those are materials we know stand up to the test of time. You can go to the next slide, Bill. So these are just a couple shots of our interiors so you can see what our kind of fit and finish is. The 2 top pictures are one of our community room
and a fitness room in the Regency apartment building that we just opened. Most of our communities have a community room, they have a fitness room, they have a pool, and they have that full-time management office. We find that the fitness room and the pool are really what draws our residents. They like having those amenities with them. In this case, our residents at 854, if and when that gets built, would be using our amenity space over at 857 Federal Road, which is quite large. The pictures on the bottom there you can see are just some of our pictures of our units. We typically do 1 and 2 bedroom units, which we would be proposing here. We use vinyl plank flooring, floor-to-ceiling windows, stainless steel appliances. We really try to use condo-like finishes because we're offering a luxury apartment amenity. You can go to the next slide, though. So here's the site that we're going to be talking about tonight. Again, it's 854 Federal Road. It's 3.75 acres. It is right across the street of the Federal Road Apartments, which is under construction right now. You might have seen it. We are framing out the building right along the road. We're framing out the 3rd story right now. That's 100 units. It's the building at Federal Road is 29 units. It's 3 stories with a very large-scale amenity space, built kind of out like commercial space on the ground floor. And then the back building is another 71 units, and that's 4 stories. You can go to the next slide, Bill. Just to give you a little bit of history on this site, so we're proposing a development at 854 Federal Road, which is 3.75 acres. But it was part of a larger project called the Enclave Project, which I understand was approved as an 830G, and it has like a long history with the town. I believe there was a lawsuit associated with it. The former Enclave Project included 2 lots. We're only proposing on 1. Because it was an 830G, it does have a large affordability component with it. It was about 180 units, and as you can see, there are multiple buildings proposed throughout. So it has a much larger footprint than what we'll be proposing tonight. And because of this, it does build over and propose filling in some wetlands, which we will try to avoid. If you go to our next slide, you can see what we're proposing. So this is what we're proposing on that one southern site. We're proposing 1 4-story elevated building with 51 units. What going 4 stories here allows us to do, it allows us to consolidate our footprint. It allows us to bring the 4 stories back from the street, so we're 300 plus feet away from the street. It allows us to ensure that we're not impacting any of the federally protected wetlands. What we're also proposing with this project is we would continue the streetscape improvements, matching what has been done in the district. We worked very closely with Greg and his team on 857 Federal Road to make sure that we were putting in the sidewalk infrastructure that matches the rest of the district and continues that pedestrian way. You can go, and then we would also be proposing a crosswalk across the street so we connect both of our developments. Next slide. And then this is just a quick comparison of what is already permitted and what could be built right now versus what we're proposing. So on the southern half of the site during the Enclave Project, they had 55 units in 2 buildings. We're proposing 51 units in 1 building. They had a slightly smaller footprint because they had 2 buildings, so theirs was 14,500 versus ours at 16,000. They were right up at the front of the street. They're only 25 feet back. We're about 320 feet back from the road. I think I said 325 before, close to that. Both of our projects are proposing 4 stories. They were slightly more dense at 55 units at 14.66 units per acre. We're proposing 13.6 units per acre. They had 2 buildings, so their max units per building were 36, whereas we're only proposing 1 at 51. And then because, again, they had 2 buildings, they have a much larger impervious coverage. So they're at 76,000, and we've reduced that to 56,000. And they have 2,300 square feet of wetland impacts, where we're proposing of not impacting the wetlands at all with our proposal. Go to the next slide. So in order to kind of move our proposal forward, we will have to ask for some amendments to the town center district, which I'll turn over to Bill right now, and he'll talk about those a little bit.
Thank you, Emily. For the record, my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a land use attorney and a partner at the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London, Connecticut. And it's nice to see some of you again. I've been out here several times over the last few years, not only for this effort, but for the previous effort for the permitting of 857. So what we tried to do when this opportunity came before us to acquire the southern part of the Enclave project was to take a look and make some analysis on the zoning regulations to see what were the obstacles under the current town center district regulations that would prevent the project as we envisioned it from going forward. So this chart here on the left side of your screen shows the TCD development standard, and then on the right, the proposed amendments that we're proposing here tonight. The footprint maximum for buildings in the TCD right now is 12,000 square feet. There's a maximum front yard setback of 25 feet, a maximum height of 3 stories or 42 feet, a density of 8 units an acre, and a max number of units per building of 9. And there's also a requirement for 2 independent means of egress to the project. What we're going to be proposing to allow that concept design to move forward are some very targeted changes. And those changes are, and I'll talk to you about how we do that in a second, but those changes are increasing the maximum footprint size, removing the maximum front setback requirement, a small increase in height to 4 stories or 50 feet, increasing the density to 14 units an acre, and then allowing 51 units per building, which is, there are 51 units in the building that we've shown on our concept plan, and then 1 independent means of egress from the site. On the right side of your screen, we have a drawing that we put together to show you a number of lots that we've identified as lots that have development potential in the TCD. The TCD is along Federal Road is pretty well developed right now, and one of the things in our workshops with the commission last summer is we talked about ways we could modify the TCD, and not in a wholesale way, but targeting specific properties. And what we ultimately decided on, and what we shared with you, I think in August at the last workshop we had, was targeting a text amendment that only affected vacant lots in the TCD with frontage on Federal Road. And so when we were working on this last summer, there were basically 6 lots that met that requirement, vacant and having frontage on Federal Road. And those are marked with sort of the bright green dots. The uppermost one is a very small lot at the northernmost end of the TCD. It's a very small lot. It's fairly flat. It's got some cleared areas, but it also has some woodlands on it. It's actually a fairly decent size, a decent lot for development, but there really are not a lot of environmental constraints on it at all. And it's quite small. It's only about 1.5 acres in size. Moving southwards, there's the second green dot, which has the red box around it. That's our site. That's our 3.75 acre site. That's a site that has wetlands on it. It has challenges, particularly on the front half of the site, but it has frontage and it's vacant as well. And moving further down, there's 4 other lots that we identified. The next one proceeding south is just south of the barber shop. This is sort of an L-shaped parcel. It's almost entirely wetlands. It actually is a depressional area. It's probably not a buildable lot. There's not a lot of room of upland soil on it at all to build. And if you continue to go down, there is, to the right, there are 2 lots that have a red, the perimeter is called out in dark red. They are technically vacant lots, but they're actually under construction right now. That's the Emporium site right now, so if you're familiar with that site. So those are actually in the process of not being vacant at the moment. And then across the street, there's another lot that has floodplain and is drainage throughout it. Again, very little developable area. I raise this to show you that there are very few actually developable lots from our that are on Federal Road that are vacant and have that frontage. Really only 2, the northern 2, including ours. If you go to the next slide. That's okay.
Job's not over.
So what we tried to do is, and this really came out of the workshops, is could we make a text amendment that was so narrowly tailored that it didn't upend the whole TCD district, but allowed for additional flexibility to develop our lot in particular, and maybe one other lot in the district. And so we looked through the TCD, and in Section J of the Town Center District, you already have a whole section on design flexibility. There are already provisions in place to allow developers and property owners to get a little bit more room in the regulations, to flex a little bit the regulations, to try to overcome obstacles. So what we're proposing tonight is design flexibility J6, which is the development of vacant constrained lots. And I'll read it into the record. This is the proposed text amendment. For lots that are within the TCD, which are vacant as of July 1st, 2023, so last summer, include frontage on Federal Road, and this is important, and encompass environmental constraints such as inland wetlands or other natural resources which limit opportunities for practical and conforming development, the Commission may approve, subject to a special permit, development with the following flexibility in typical bulk and dimensional requirements. And then we have a list of 6 bulk and dimensional requirements that are specific to this instance. And so again, they're right from that chart I just showed you. It's the increased maximum footprint, the elimination of the maximum front yard setback, an increase in height to 4 stories, an increase in density, an increase in the number of dwelling units per building, and then reducing the independent means of access. If there is a property owner who wants to take advantage of this, they must show the Commission that they have a lot that was vacant on July 1, 2023. 2, it must have frontage on Federal Road. And 3, it must have some environmental constraint that would make it difficult to develop under the current scheme. Our lot meets all of those. We have wetlands throughout the front of the lot. Many of those wetlands were going to be filled with the Enclave project. We can do our project without impacting them whatsoever. But to do it, we do need those 6 areas of flexibility in the regulations. This wouldn't affect the TCD as a whole. It wouldn't make wholesale changes the way the district is developed. In fact, I would suggest to you that this narrowly tailored and targeted amendment specifically allows a difficult lot that wouldn't be able to be developed for much otherwise to be developed in a way that is actually positive and adds to what's going on in the community right now. Go to the next slide. We also met with the Planning Commission last week, and you did get a report that was read in. And we talked about the consistency with them of the text change with the POCD. I'm not going to go into all of these directly, but this is certainly the kind of development that is infill development, where we try to create opportunities to go back into developed corridors, lots that haven't been developed before, give them the opportunity to be developed. So that's number 1. Number 2, there's still a high demand in this community for rental housing. For older folks who may have lived in Brookfield their whole lives and want to stay here, but they don't want to manage a house, we certainly provide amazing accommodations in many of our buildings, and I've seen it firsthand. I work in New London. There's 2 buildings in New London. We have buildings that are split between elderly seniors and young professionals. And that's the other group that this really targets, is those people who want to live in Brookfield, maybe people who grew up in Brookfield, who can't afford one of the nicer single-family homes, but want to be here and want something in between. And I think the apartment, a high-end Class A apartment opportunity is exactly what would allow you to have that kind of intergenerational community that you want. You don't want all one age group or all one age demographic in town. I think also, there is a constraint of land here in Brookfield. You have parcels that have developable portions. The 3.75 acres at 854 Federal Road has a section of it that is developable, but it needs help in your zoning regulations to do that. It's really the rear of the site, far away, much further back from Federal Road, not right up against it. Also, there's been this discussion about Federal Road being a corridor, basically being a hub that leads down into your downtown. You guys have done a great job in your downtown district. There are pedestrian connections. The streetscape project that your economic development coordinator has been heading up. The idea of allowing people in higher densities to live along Federal Road and be able to not necessarily have to get into a car to go visit downtown, but to walk, to go to shop, to go to a restaurant. And so I think building and allowing for apartment development within that corridor, and then promoting the interconnectivity to your downtown are both elements of the plan of conservation and development. Next slide. So that's basically our proposal here for tonight. I'm willing to answer any questions you have. Emily's here as well. Again, we tried to take as much direction from the commission through our informal workshop process. What we're proposing, again, just to reiterate, is narrowly tailored. It's targeted. It will not wholesale change your TCD. But what it will do is allow us to have the opportunity to take a parcel that right now is approved for an 830G project. All the permits are still in place. It's a project that was really foisted upon the town by the courts. We can come in and do something that will really mirror and enhance what we're already doing across the street. I think it's a win-win for the town. I hope that you can see that our effort to try to build a text amendment that was really specific for our needs, and we certainly would appreciate your support so that we can move ahead and come back to you hopefully in a few months with the actual project itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions at this point? You can ask more later, but if you have some now, please,
Sure.
Mr. Timmerman.
You mentioned 830G in the old one. Are these all market rate on these units?
Yeah, that's correct. They all are market rate. AR Building is typically a market rate developer. We do some affordable when it's demanded of us from communities. In fact, across the street at 857, that was part of the 857 approval, so that we have a very small number of units that are affordable in the other side of the street project. But no, what we didn't want to do, and that was something we talked about with staff, and if you might recall at our first workshop meeting, was it important for us to have an affordable component? I know you have an 830G moratorium right now in town. We believe that you have done a lot already to push that issue in town, but we certainly think we're already providing the affordable units across the street. We'd really like these to be market rate. We think that would be the best fit for the larger project. As much as they are two separate projects and two separate parcels with two separate permitting packages, they will function as a single unified project. And as I think Emily properly said, we have a beautiful pool that's part of the project. You know, the people who live in the 51 units at 854, we hope will come over and use that pool, be able to use the fitness center. We have just the entire bottom floor of that first building at 857 is a large community room and fitness center, if any of you remember the plans for that. So we're really excited about this is really, in our mind, almost phase 2 of the larger project.
And speaking of that building, the back building of the current project, is it sort of not mirrored, but is it also like 50 feet tall and about 300 feet back? Or?
Yeah, so if you can there's the picture of our concept drawing. Yeah, so it's actually a bigger building, what we're building right now, because I think it's 71 units. We're only proposing 51 on this side. But yes, we absolutely looked at that, and we wanted to make sure that if we were going to have a 4-story building, it had to be properly set back from the street. We did not think it was appropriate to have a 4-story building right up on the street, a la the Enclave. We think it was much more appropriate to have it set back. That is going to be a 4-story building, what we're building right now, at what is the former Green Acres project. But we think it will mirror it, and I think it is compatible. Sort of, as we look at it, it seems to make sense and balanced.
All right.
Just a smaller building than we're building across the street.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Armet?
Yes, so you're building a fairly luxury apartment complex for elderly mostly.
Well,
You're thinking they're going to go across the street to use the amenities in affordable housing.
Well, let me correct a couple things. Our units are really split between two demographics. So we will absolutely get seniors typically from the community that we're building in. And I've seen this firsthand in New London. People who grew up and maybe raised children, had a single family house, but want to stay in the community, don't want to take care of a yard anymore. But the building is not a senior building. It's amazing how you can see the different demographics in AR buildings. You will have a couple who are in their 60s living right next to two 20-somethings who are working in a local business or in an office building in the next town over. It happens all the time in all of our buildings. So it's not a senior building, but we do expect there'll be a component of our population that will be senior in that building. It's what we see in all of the buildings that we do.
And you expect them to go across the street to use the amenities?
To use the pool amenities, absolutely. We have a huge pool in that area, and we have a very large fitness center. We may have amenities in this building as well, a smaller suite in this building. We haven't done the full design of the first floor of this building yet, but we may have some amenities as well in this building. But the property across the street is not an affordable housing project. It's not an 830G project. It has an affordable component, which I believe is something, I think it was 10%. Yeah, it's incentive housing. So I think it's 10% of the units, so it's like 10 units. Don't quote me, it might be 11 or it might be 7 or 8. I have to look at it again. Is it 20? Okay, so 20% of the units have an affordability requirement that income of 80% of AMI. So that's not an 830G project, it's just a project that has some units set aside, and that was something that was a requirement of the town when we did it. If we had our druthers, they would be all market rate. But that is something that we put in as a requirement of the previous approvals from 2013.
Is it built the same way?
Yeah, it is. And that's actually, people are surprised at that, but that's actually how almost all affordable housing is being built now. So we have what we call them as mixed income communities, where whether you're in an income restricted unit or not, you can't tell the difference. The fit, the finish, they're all the same. And there's a designation. If you live in the complex, you don't know who has an affordable unit and who doesn't. They're all the same units.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions at this time? Certainly ask more later if you want to wait.
I just have a
Mrs.
question
Holmes.
for Mr. Timmerman. Were you part of the approval of the enclave way back? Have you been
No,
on
that
board
was
long?
before my time.
Okay.
It should say that the enclave was originally denied, as I understand it, and it went to court, and then it came back through a settlement. So, again, I don't believe the enclave was a project that the town necessarily wanted. It was
What year was that?
2016. Yeah, I think the settlement agreement that I've read was from 2016.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Arment?
If I could. One more question.
Sure.
You are setting back 300 feet, and you have wetlands in front.
Right.
What do you propose to do with that?
So this is obviously a concept design, but if you look at the drawings, we intend to thread the needle between the two wetlands for our access drive and our parking, so we don't have to fill any wetlands with the project. What's really nice about that, though, is both wetland areas, which are currently wooded, will stay wooded. And in addition, we have area between the southernmost wetland and the sort of the southeast frontage of the property that's undesignated right now, which can stay natural as well. This was a big issue that last week at the Planning Commission. Is one of the great things about this project is we're going to be able to provide an incredibly beautiful buffer and screen. You will probably be able to see this building as you pass and you look down that central spoke. You'll be able to see a glimpse of the building in the distance. But we are going to have a very private, very secluded 51-unit building. We think that's going to be really, really attractive for people who don't want to live necessarily right on the road, but still want to have the ability to get to Federal Road and get down to your downtown and enjoy it. So it gives them a little bit more privacy. I think it's a best fit, and really the best place to build on this lot is right where the building is being proposed.
Will there be garages or just parking spots?
We just do surface parking with these buildings. We find that for our market is very appropriate, so we don't have garages as part of this design. We've done them in some projects, but this is not a design that has built-in garages.
1 or 2 parking spaces per unit?
Depends on the number of bedrooms.
We're at about 1.5 spaces.
Yeah. So on average, it's 1.5.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thanks. Does the audience have any questions of clarification before we hear comments pro or con?
I have one.
Yes, question of clarification.
Greg Dembowski, just want to clarify. the federal road's a state road, and the location of that crosswalk will have to be approved by the DOT, and hopefully be part of our streetscape Phase 4 design. So I just want to make that comment.
All
That
right.
crosswalk may not be exactly there.
All right. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in favor of this application.
Hi, I haven't changed my name. This is way better than the Enclave. Lower density, the house is set back, and quite honestly, because the Enclave has been in limbo for a long time and still is, Streetscape Phase 4 hasn't happened, nor will it happen. The DOT has been telling us, and Fran hears me yelling over the barriers at work every week, that project's in limbo. The state won't approve it because the Enclave project design wasn't moving forward. Their OSTA permits and their whole plan was up in the air. And for at least 2 years, Streetscape Phase 4, which is gonna go from the Agora Restaurant all the way up to Newberry Village, the sidewalk on the west side of the road, has not been approved and won't be approved. So the reason I like this project is it moves the Enclave, it takes the Enclave project off the books. This gets us that. The project north of there is another application I think you might be seeing soon if you haven't already. And that allows us to complete Streetscape Phase 4. So I'm in favor of this for that, primarily that reason.
Since you brought this up, I was curious if you had an opinion about the 4th story, going from 3 to 4 stories. Is there any issues with that?
In this case, no, because of the setback of 320 feet. That difference of 42 feet to 50, if it was a 50-foot building right on Federal Road, like the one across the street, I'd be less in favor of it. But this is 8 more feet, 300 feet off the road, that's gonna be landscaped, and I don't think you'll see the difference. In fact, the Planning Commission had that very discussion. The fact you're going 8 feet higher, but you're 300 feet back, I don't think you'll see it. So, the streetscape sidewalk is going right past, it's on the west side of the road. It'll be a nice finishing touch, if you will, to our TCD. If I could just comment for a second on the POCD. It's up for renewal. We're gonna start in the spring of 2024. If you recall, when the POCD was written back in 2015, the #1 priority of the POCD was the revitalization of the TCD. That's not going to be our top priority in the next 10 years. We will essentially be complete or mostly complete with town center revitalization. There'll be other priorities in this town that I'm sure you guys all know are aware of, all you folks are aware of. So this is our, this consistency with this project is consistent with the POCD. That being our #1 goal back then was to revitalize the downtown. And we will be pretty much complete with that in a couple of years. So,
Thank you.
yep.
The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in opposition to this application. Anyone wish to speak in opposition? I don't see anyone. Wait. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Happy to, Mr. Chairman. Andy Kane, 5 Fernbrook Drive. I'd just like to point out a couple of things that you might want to consider in the long term here. The property is currently zoned for 9 units, not 51 units. That's a 600% density increase. Just think about that for a minute. 600% you're going to be increasing the density for. I think we all know, we've all driven by Co-op City. When you drive through into New York, very high density development. The town center district was set up the way it is for a reason. It was actually set up that way to revitalize the town center district, but many residents at the time had many objections to high density things in that region, the costs that were going to be involved, and they were told, don't worry, it's only going to be 3 stories. Well, this project would set a precedent for changing this into maximum density development a little bit at a time. Many folks have complained about the overdevelopment on Federal Road. Well, it's pretty much maxed out now. This project is only going to make that worse. Okay? Higher density development has also caused a lot of costs in Brookfield to skyrocket. Brookfield EMS, fire, police, the school service costs have skyrocketed in recent years because of high density development. Well, who pays for that? Well, the property tax owners pay for that. The people who own homes pay for that. Renters do not pay real property taxes. Shifting those costs to residents who do pay is really not in the interest of the town. So I would encourage you to consider that in your vote. New London, the projects that you saw. Well, New London is a city, high-density development. This situation that you're seeing now, it's an example of what some have referred to as zoning creep, where a set of regulations are passed and incrementally they're changed into something that was never proposed for the town. I'm very concerned about the restriction of access to the property from 2 access points to 1. Anytime you have high-density development, you have a potential for problems if there's a fire or something like that. So reducing the access to the property is never a good idea. I think these plans like this and other ones that you're going to be hearing in the future is really a plan to change the town center district into maximum density development and develop parcels that were never really intended to be developed. When this was originally discussed way back when, the concept of having parcels that were not be developed was called greenscape. You would have these things, it would break up the buildings. I think ultimately what you're going to see, what you're going to see here is what you do for one developer, you're going to have to do for the other developers. The other developers will want similar treatment. And I would just encourage you to think about this. Brookfield, when I moved to Brookfield, it was a rural place. It's now becoming a city. Many folks are referring to it as Danbury North. If that's what you want, do it. A lot of people don't. They didn't vote for that when they supported the town center district. It was sold as a minimally invasive project, and we've seen that that's not what happened. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. The applicant will now have the opportunity to comment, and the time is now limited to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the comments of the last speaker. Just a couple points of clarification. I think they're important for the record. The density that were proposed is not a density increase from 9 to 51 units. That's the number of units per building that we allow. In fact, there were more units proposed when the Enclave was being built for this site, in addition to additional commercial space and a clubhouse as well on the property. So it's not a question of an increase in density. It's just how we structure that on the site, whether you're allowed to combine units into a single building. When you're able to do that and actually build up, you can build with a smaller development footprint. That's more economic, more environmentally sensible. It disturbs less land. It protects more wetlands. And I think it's a completely rational and reasonable approach, particularly on a site where you have constraints. What you do tonight, whether you approve or deny this, has absolutely nothing to do with any other application. And when you sit on a text amendment here in the state of Connecticut, you sit in your legislative capacity. That is your broadest level of discretion that you have in the land use arena. Every application that you review has to be looked at on an individual basis and on the facts and circumstances of that application. So just because you may approve this tonight doesn't mean you have to approve any other application that comes before you for a text amendment or a zone change. I reject the idea in every way that a project of multifamily development at this price point and in this style actually creates any costs to the community in a negative fashion. We talked about this when we did 857 across the street. We talked about it this summer. It is proven through longitudinal studies conducted by universities like Rutgers in New Jersey that multifamily apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom, which is what we're proposing, generate an infinitesimal number of school-age children and just a fraction of the school-age children that is generated by single-family housing. There is certainly an argument that single-family housing is land consumptive and actually puts a negative burden on your municipal services. But there's just literally no rational evidence that multifamily development in any way has a negative impact on municipal services. So I reject that argument completely. I don't think this is an example of zoning creep. We took a lot of time working closely with this commission on trying to narrowly tailor our amendment so that it only impacts a very, very small population of parcels. And I went through those parcels with you and explained how literally only 2 of the 6 that are even potentially eligible are actually even could be used for. So I don't think this is a question of creep. I think this is a question of infill development. I think it's a question of saying there are areas on Federal Road that are developable, that can add to the tax base, but they just need a little flexibility. And flexibility is something that you've already recognized is needed in the TCD. You have a design flexibility section. You have A through HI. You have, a half dozen flexible standards already. We're just asking for another one that's specifically tailored for this project. On the issue of independent means of egress, yes, we are asking for reduction from 2 to 1. Specifically because we think 1 curb cut is sufficient for this development, and if we have 2 curb cuts, it's likely we'll have some wetland impact. That doesn't mean we don't have another form of egress from the site. If those of you who may have been familiar with the Enclave project, we have a second means of egress to the site, but it's not independent. It's shared. So there is an easement that runs from the north side of the property along the back of the building and down south all the way out to Station Road, and it cuts through the parcel below as well. It's a fire and emergency access. Runs right behind the bowling alley, and right behind it's the patio. So there's a second means of fire access for this site and actually for the parcel above it as well. It's not independent, but it's there. So I think 1 independent means is more than sufficient here, particularly because we're trying to protect wetlands. I think finally, I would, remind the commission that we've been here at least 2 times before this application to try to work on this regulation and try to craft something that was thoughtful, that was carefully selected. We certainly do not want to turn or destroy the character of Brookfield. There's a reason why my client is investing millions of dollars in this town, because it's a beautiful town. We were directed to this corridor because your plan of development says this is the place to build apartments. We want to build really nice quality apartments here. It's not something that we do lightly. It's something that we certainly take a lot of pride in, and we're going to be here after they're done as well. We're going to be a part of this community for decades to come, and I hope that our presentations tonight reinforce that commitment to the town. So thank you again for your time. If you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does anyone here have any other questions for the applicant?
I just have a comment you
Tillman,
might want to.
please.
One of my concerns is tall buildings and setbacks. And the one thing I would want to see is, in addition to this, that any tall building is set back a minimum distance. We did the same thing in the CG North, where we allow 45-foot buildings, but they had to be set back at least 150 feet from the property lines. In this case, just like your building is already 20 feet back from your conceptual drawing, though it's not codified in this design flexibility. The only thing I would like to see is that actual codification, like 150, 200 feet back, because it is a zone change and there are other parcels that it would cover. So if you didn't have protection like that, someone could say, oh, I'm going to put something really close to the road, and I don't want that. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it.
I don't have any objection to belt and suspenders. For a standalone residential building in the TCD, you have to be 300 feet back. That's standard in the TCD right now. But if you want to make it clear and you want to add something to the design flexibility, that any building that uses this section has to be 300 feet back, we have no objection to that whatsoever. As a zoning commission, you can approve, you can deny, or you can modify a text amendment and make it more restrictive. And that's, again, I don't think you're making it more restrictive. You're not making it any less restrictive. You're just clarifying the issue. So I think that's a good point, and it's certainly something we could work with you on.
Thank you. Mrs. Narmet?
Would
sorry.
you consider fewer units?
This is the smallest building we do. So the answer to that is no. There's a cost for the infrastructure to get into this site. We talked long with Fran and with Laura, and you can see the building across the street on the back is 71. We shrunk this. The 51 is the smallest building that AR does that will fit on this site. So no, we wouldn't consider anything less than that. That's really what we need to make the project economically viable based on the costs involved.
Thank you.
Do you build in small towns?
Yeah, we do. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. I would say Brookfield is our typical market. We love being in places where we're outside of larger cities. We like being in places where there's a strong single-family component, because what we do find is that, you know, a lot of residents that are long-term residents want apartments after they're kind of tired of taking care of their house, and we like to give people that option to stay in their community. We also find that in a lot of towns like this, you know, people that were raised in the town, they want to stay in the town. At this point, with interest rates, they definitely can't be buying a single-family house right now. So this gives us another opportunity for those young professionals to live in that town. We're doing projects in, you know, Meriden, and Newington, which I think is somewhat similar to Brookfield, although Brookfield's probably a little smaller. But throughout Pittsburgh, we're not in Pittsburgh. We're in the towns outside of Pittsburgh. This is very similar to our market.
Thank you, Ms. Solms.
I do have a few questions for you guys.
Sure.
Greg. So these are market rate. What is the going market rate rental on something like these luxury units?
Sure.
What's the cost, do you think, that they would be?
You know, it's going to change by the time these are up and built.
Right.
So I always like to
Ballpark-
clarify
ballpark would be fine.
that. But on average, they're probably going to be about $1,800 a month.
For one bedroom?
On average, between the 1 and the 2 bedrooms.
Okay. So you're all set to go for this Enclave 830G, and you have the permits, and it was approved and all this stuff. Is that totally scrapped? You're done with that? Or if we don't approve this one, you might think about doing that one? I mean, you have that one
Go ahead.
approved, it's ready to roll. What if we, you know, tonight?
That's a great question. So the Enclave project was this property and the property above it together for 180 units. We don't have the rights to those approvals, nor would we want to build those buildings because they were ugly to start with.
So this is pretty much
If
void.
we,
No
yes, so if
over,
this goes forward, Enclave is void because Enclave can't be built as it was approved, because the south half of it,
Everything has changed.
and this, I think this goes to sort of the point that Greg had made, and I think we've talked with the town officials about it as well, is if this goes forward, then the Enclave dies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And Mr. Dembowski, could you clarify and just explain a little bit more about, you were saying the TCD district and phase 4 of our streetscape can't be completed until something like this happens?
The
or
DOT is.
because of the state stuff, or can you go through
Sure,
that?
sure. So this is a state road,
Okay.
and the project has to be approved by Connecticut DOT. They're the sponsor of the lots
This
of
is project phase 4.
Phase 4,
That's what you're talking about.
right. And the state has told us for about 2 years or longer, when we first got the town approval to do Phase 4, is we will not approve your design, we will not let you go to construction until these sites are understood where the driveway cuts are gonna be. And their logic is, why should the state pay money to put in a sidewalk and streetscape, and then any developer comes in and puts road cuts in and takes out the things we just put in with new road cuts? You see what I'm?
I do. So we kind of want to see this all completed sooner.
Well, that's the object, that's the,
I mean, I would
that's
like
the,
to.
that's the
So
objective.
they really won't give us any.
That's
funding.
correct. We are on hold.
Because it does look unfinished over there. I mean,
Yeah.
I have wondered myself, why isn't this finished? Why hasn't it been wrapping up?
In fact,
Why can't we
residents
get this?
residents call and complain about a lot of things. One of the things is, when are you gonna finish Phase 4? Because that's undeveloped
I've
north of
wondered that
them.
myself.
Yeah, and that's the reason. We are sitting here on hold. And I will mention one thing else if I can. The lot SIP rules just changed at our COG about 2 months ago, and I made this presentation to, I think, the Board of Selectmen, if I'm not mistaken.
I know I certainly have to Selectwoman Carr. The lot SIP rules have changed because money's getting tighter with Connecticut DOT. If projects that were approved don't get done within a certain timeline, the state takes the money back.
Such as the Enclave, which we know is probably
Such,
never coming.
such as Streetscape Phase 4.
Okay.
We are 2 years away, we are now 2 years away from, if we don't have a set of approved plans by the DOT, the state's taking back that, several $1 million for Phase 4.
That was a lot. That's great. This is all good. Good
So,
info.
If I can mention one,
About all
if
this.
I can mention one more thing,
Okay.
the comment about EMS services, if I can I?
Okay.
So that, of course, is a concern, and it has been by the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen. That's why the Board of Finance, many months ago, approved funding for an EMS study. That study was completed and presented to the Board of Selectmen Monday night. And you all maybe want to take a look at it, because it addresses things like development, the cost for EMS services, what's the driver of those costs. So I encourage you to take a look at that report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I did have a couple of mundane questions. One for Ms. Mitchell. What do you mean with the term you use, condo-like finishes?
Sure. I'm just trying to explain kind of the fit and finish that we have within our units. So, you know, many people have different opinions about rental units. But when you think about a condo, you think about something that someone's purchasing for the long term, and they're thinking about the finishes that are associated with that. So what I would see with that would be stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, wood cabinets, vinyl plank flooring. That's the only thing I meant by that.
A little more high-end than cut rate? Is that a
Exactly,
fair
exactly.
assessment? All right. Thank you. Also, I was curious, could we get a complete copy of this PowerPoint presentation?
I provided it to Fran before the hearing as to make it a part of the record,
Okay.
and he can share that with you as well.
Yeah, because it'd be nice if we could review that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone else?
May I take a look at the letter from planning that was read into the record at the beginning of this?
Sure. You want to do that now?
Sure. Yeah, I'll
That's at
just
the top,
look
I
through it
think,
while
right?
you finish
Oh.
talking. Scott, signed by Dale. Thank you so much. Just wanted to read it quick.
Anyone else have any questions why Commissioner Holmes reads?
Not questions, but I guess procedure, because if we feel like upon review of the plan and this PowerPoint, we have more questions, we have to leave the public hearing open. But we need an extension to do that.
Right.
So that's something we have to think about.
Fran's already asked us about that, and obviously if you need more time, we will grant the extension that you need.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to,
Mrs. Holmes?
thank you, just to revisit this. Motion was made by Jay Mara to send a memo to zoning stating the planning commission has made a favorable referral with regard to the proposed text amendment. Blah, blah, blah. L. Taylor seconded the motion, which carried 3-1, S. Dale opposing, so 1 opposed. So it wasn't completely unanimous that they all favored it.
Right. And I think that's,
Interesting too. I mean, I'd like to sit in or, check the meeting and maybe,
when I read their
watch the-
minutes,
okay,
they were discussing, and especially, I think his first name was Scott, but Mr. Dale was
Yeah.
discussing the heights, and in the POCD, I think it was around page 66, there was a mention of, 2-story buildings.
is
But-
that why Mr. Dale was opposed?
I
The
think
4-story
because
heights?
the POCD said 2 stories, and this is, saying
Quite
4.
a bit higher,
But,
it is.
but the actual TCD regs actually allow 3. So though the POCD was the guiding document, in the end, when we created the final regs for the TCD, it ended up at 3 stories, 42 feet. So I think the rest of the commission, the other 3 who voted, felt that, the spirit of the POCD was there. And the other thing the POCD mentioned
And
was.
just say, define POCD
Oh,
for those
plan
of us
of,
listening.
plan of conservation and development, which is updated every 5 years? 10 years? Oh, every 10 years.
Thank you.
So the last time it was updated was 2015, the next time will be 2025, which is why they're starting next year. It takes a long time. And the other thing in the POCD was the fact that there was a market or a need for about 1,000 units of rental units, and they wanted to
In-
plan on that.
In town?
I think, well, I think it was mentioned in town, but it might have been in the region too. So we're not gonna have 1,000, that's
We're gonna
a
have
heck
quite
of
a
a lot.
few.
So that's where the POCD was talking about, putting apartments down the main corridor, making them walkable so you could go to, you know, the local businesses down there. And you need the apartments to have the people for the businesses and the business, vice versa, and businesses needed there for the people who live
I
there.
hear that,
you know.
right.
So that's what the POCD was putting forth, and that's how the regulations came. So it was just that, the mention of 2 stories, which preceded, you know, actually making the final regs.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman.
One clarification, if I can?
All right, you're stretching it, but go ahead,
It's okay if
please.
you don't want to.
Please, go ahead.
So just for the record, so we're clear, yes, the POCD was written in 2015. It was amended and approved in the spring of 2016. We talked to the state about 2 months ago, and they said the amended date is the effective date. Therefore, our POCD is not due until the spring of 2016, just for the record.
Thank you for that. Well, has everyone asked their comments, questions? I'm
Comments.
sensing that there's some interest in needing a little bit more time. And if that is the case, the chair is prepared to entertain a motion to continue this matter until our next meeting, which is December 14th.
As a
an
point of
interest in
order,
that?
should we get the extension first before we make a motion on continuing?
Certainly.
And Fran, how do we just,
I could put it onto the record right now that
All right.
if you would like to have December 14th, we will grant you an extension to December 14th. I'll follow up with Fran in writing, but you'll have it on the record, me saying that.
Thank you.
On behalf of my client.
And it should be mentioned that the reason that we need the extension is because you postponed 2 prior meetings, right?
And that was
Used up all
actually a
that time.
courtesy, you know, the fact that it was postponed, that was a courtesy you gave me. I was booked with another client, but those 2 nights, so thank you for that.
We're happy to do that.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Having clarified that, do we now have a motion?
make a motion to continue this public hearing till our next scheduled meeting of,
So Z-23-54
yeah,
to our next meeting, which is on December 14th, 2023. Is that
Yes.
the motion?
that is.
We have a motion from Mr. Timmerman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Arment has seconded it. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Hearing no further discussion, I call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there anyone abstaining? No. The motion carries. We will
I just wrote that.
continue this public hearing until December 14th. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time
you,
and
Mr. Chairman.
attention.
Thank you for coming.
Have a good
I
evening.
believe it's 51. Z-2351.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say 54?
I think so.
I think I wrote over it. Thank you for that clarification.
You're gonna be here.
Mr. Lally, do we have another file for this next case?
Do, I have it right here.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item, number 6, is public hearings. First, A as in Alpha, 2 Bonnie Road, Z-23-56. Gia Medina, special permit with design review for 634 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16. Public hearing is set for today. And I will now read the directions for a public hearing. This is the introduction to a public hearing for November 9th, 2023. This is a regular meeting of the Brookfield Zoning Commission. At this point in our agenda, we have scheduled a public hearing concerning the application of Gina Medina, 2 Bonnie Road, Brookfield, application number Z-23-56, for a special permit with design review for 634 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16. Once again, as a formality, please, let's introduce the members of the commission again, starting with my far left.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Rishendra Komar, Vice Chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Thank you. We will open this public hearing by calling upon the Commission Secretary to read the legal notice of this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Timmerman.
Sure. To the News Times, legals from Amy Curran, Land Use Administrative Assistant, dated October 26, 2023. Please print the following legal notice on October 27th and November 6, 2023. Notice, Brookfield Zoning Commission will hold 2 public hearings at Town Hall, 100 Pocono Road, Room 133 at 7 p.m. on November 9th, 2023, for applications by 1, Gina Medina, 2 Bonnie Road, to construct a 634 square foot accessory apartment, and 2, Carl Squitieri for Acacia Cappuccino, 120 Obtuse Hill Road, to construct a 700 square foot accessory apartment. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard, and written communications received. Files are available for inspection at Town Hall. Gary Getz, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. This application was formally received by the Commission on September 26, 2023. The public hearing is only one aspect of the approval process and is for the purposes of accepting factual information and data bearing on this application and to allow expression of opinion by interested parties. Subsequent to this hearing, the Commission has 65 days in which to render a decision on this proposal. The final decision may be in the form of approved as submitted, approved with stipulations, or denied. After reading into the record the correspondence received by the Commission relative to this application, we will ask the applicant to present the application in detail. The presentation will be limited to 45 minutes. The Chair will then entertain questions of clarification concerning the applicant's presentation. Mr. Lally, we read the public notice. Is there any other correspondence that we have at this time?
There was none.
Okay, thank you. The Chair will entertain questions of clarification concerning the applicant's presentation. We will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Comments must be limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public will have one opportunity to speak during this segment of the hearing and may also submit their questions in writing during the public hearing. During this segment, the commissioners may ask additional questions. The bylaws of the Commission allow only for the presentation of similar positions in succession and preclude the intermixture of comments pro or con. All questions and comments must be directed through the Chair. As you are recognized, please state your name and address so that your comments may be legally recorded. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. However, the Commission is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application, and in view of the time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in not reiterating comments previously presented. After the public comments are received, the applicant will have the opportunity to comment, and the time will be limited to 10 minutes. Are there any questions? Normally at this time we would ask the Secretary to read correspondence, but there's nothing further to read at this time. So the Chair is now prepared to hear the applicant's presentation.
I think this one is here. October 14th, 2023, to the Brookfield Zoning Commission regarding 2 Bonnie Road single-family conversion application. In regards to the notification letter to adjoining landowners we received, the letters related to the application from Gina Medina for the conversion of a single-family conversion to an apartment within the dwelling. We have no objections regarding this conversion. Signed, Will Mikely and Jean Harnett of 58 Tower Road, Brookfield, Connecticut.
Thank you for that, Mr. Timmerman. Now the Chair is prepared to hear the applicant's presentation. And again, as you go to the podium, just please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Gina Medina, 2 Bonnie Road, Brookfield, Connecticut, 06804. I've had an apartment downstairs. It's like more like a family room. It was finished property. My proposal is to put my daughter down there just to cause some separation because all these women in one house is causing a lot of chaos. So it's basically just putting her down there. There was already a kitchen, but it wasn't totally finished. My proposal is the sink and a stove, and then a bathroom. Everything else was already finished down there.
All right, thank you. Is that the extent of your presentation at this time?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Thanks. Just wanted to make sure. Does any of the commissioners have questions at this time?
Yes.
Mrs. Armet, you may want to return to the podium.
Would this area have its own access?
It does have a back access door.
Okay.
Mr. Timmons?
Anything else? I'll just stay here.
Anyone else?
And also, you're putting a stove in?
Yeah,
What kind of stove?
an electric stove?
Electric.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just say one thing?
Yes, Mr. Lally.
This was a violation that was brought to my attention originally. There was an approval for an all-pair apartment down there. Upon the inspection that I did do with the fire marshal and the health department, we went out there. I determined that an apartment was created more than what was actually originally there. This is why the applicant's here today. But
Yeah.
there was an all-pair
To be in,
apartment down there.
to get into conformity, basically?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Mr. Timmerman? Well, at this time, Chair is prepared to entertain a motion to approve the application.
Do you want to hear public?
Yeah, actually, thank you for that correction. I got a little hasty there. I got a
Ready
little
to
more
go
to
home.
read here. Excuse me for that. Does the audience have any questions of clarification before we hear comments pro or con? The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in favor of this application. See none, we will now say that the chair is prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in opposition to this application. Yes, sir, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Josh McNally, and I live at 1 Bonnie Road, directly across the street from Mrs. Medina. M-C, N as in Nancy, A-L-L-Y. So Gina and her family are very nice people. The reason that I'm coming up here in opposition is two different reasons. Number one is it sets a precedent for the neighborhood. We live in a cul-de-sac. It's single-family homes only. So I just don't want to set that precedent of having multi-dwellings in our street. The other big thing is I think kind of being a landlord or having somebody in your house like that is a big responsibility. And so there's a couple of things that have concerned me as the neighbor across the street. So I work from home just about every day. And, besides minor things like the lawn tractor being a permanent place in the front lawn, wagons staying in the front lawn the whole time, there's been multiple instances of police being at the residence. The most latest one was in August where I had a family outing at my house. The police were there for multiple hours. Because I believe somebody was living in the apartment and there was an issue there. And probably the most concerning thing that's bringing me here today is there's a special needs child who lives in the home. My child is special needs as well. On a regular basis when the bus comes, a lot of times there's nobody home to get this child off the bus. Somebody's either sleeping and a neighbor has to pound on the door. The bus is honking the horn. And on multiple occasions, my special needs child has had to run up to the door to pound on the door to get somebody to get this kid off the bus. Nobody answers the door, and on multiple times, the bus has had to leave with the child on the bus because nobody was home to pick up the child. So you're adding another layer of responsibility to being a landlord, and I'm just not seeing it from other avenues. So that's my concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in opposition to this application? Good evening.
Hello. I'm Judith Killeen, Killeen. Nobody gets it. I'm at 3 Bonnie Road. And I've lived on Bonnie Road for 40 years. So I've seen a lot of development that has changed the road, and it ends in a cul-de-sac. My concern is having now this proposal of a single-family plus apartment. It's always been at a single-family street. This is in the contract we signed 40 years ago. So that's my big concern about it. And also, through these 40 years, there have been several other families that have presented different changes to their property or the home itself, and they've been denied. And I'm just, again, very concerned of the precedent of having an apartment in what should be a single-family home. It may stay in this family for a long time, but eventually it will be sold. And then where do we go from there? It's already established, and that's my concern. That's all. I'm not very good at speaking. Okay,
Did fine.
thank you.
Is there anyone else? Any of the commissioners have any questions at this time or comments?
I guess the comment about the regulations, because the concern about, changing the flavor of the neighborhood, that's all single residents, the regulations strive to, not change the character of the outside of the house. And so you shouldn't be able to see, oh, there's a apartment inside the house. So that's part of it. The other is, if there is a change of person living there, they have to register with the town hall. So if someone leaves, then they have to come back in front of us again, so we can see this again. And there's a yearly certification that, the regulations are being met by the type of people, the age of the people, and everything else. So we do have protections in place for that. I guess
Who regulates that?
the town hall, right, Fran? Through the land use office, they keep records. They have records of all the accessory apartments in town.
Then they go out periodically and check them?
Those people have to come in once a year, so there's a list, and they have to have an affidavit that says, yes, I have someone who's over 55, that's what elder is these days, or a family member, or, a disabled person, so there's rules in our regulations too, that are pretty specific. That said, the state of, and we opted out, by the way, but the state of Connecticut wanted to make it as of right for anybody to have an accessory apartment. We opted out because we had rules in place, and we felt our rules are there to protect the neighborhood and anybody else living nearby. And so that's why in this application, there is, in fact, there's an affidavit right here that talks about, is it age 55 or older, a family member, handicapped, or it's vacant. So they have to sign this and attest to it, normally with a notary public saying, yes, they came before me. So that's what we have to go through and make sure all those conditions are met before we can do any approval on it, aside from, what it looks like and how big it is and everything else. So I just wanted to, clarify that for the public.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. Anyone else? Any questions or comments?
I do. So once again, Fran, there was an apartment put in that didn't have a permit?
There was an all-pair apartment. It wasn't actually an apartment. It was an apartment, but it didn't have a sink down there. It didn't have cooking facilities.
So it's like a basement rec room with
Yeah, it had.
bathroom, shower.
Yeah.
This
It was
drawing
almost like
is
a
really,
caretaker's, a little bit of a caretaker
it's hard to
apartment in there.
read this map
Mhm.
of what can
But it didn't have the, maybe like a caregiver may have been living there.
family room. I mean, I can't even read the drawing, to be honest with you. The labels, they're not clear to me on my copy.
Is this a
They're actually clearer on
one-story, a
Mike's.
two-story?
Basement level.
No, I mean
Family
the
room?
house. It's
It looks like a ranch.
a ranch.
It's a ranch, yeah.
What is the
Basement kitchen,
cabinets?
Yeah, cabinets.
Where will the stove be? Fridge. Where will the stove be? Right next to the fridge? Or the sink?
Well, if I may, the applicant does have the opportunity to speak for 10 minutes. If you want to come up, we can do that 10 minutes now, and people can ask further questions as well. Thank you. So so I guess that Commissioner Holmes had a question.
Yeah, there was a kitchen there, and then we cut out a piece of it, and that's where we put the sink in and the stove, so.
So you already put it in, so you
I
have
did,
a contractor
yes.
that is coming to do more work, or? you
Yes,
just
I'm gonna
get
have it,
done?
yeah, I'm gonna have more work done, make sure, it's up to code, it was done by professionals. I'm not, you know,
So a licensed contractor did put the stove in
mm-hmm,
and all of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
and, yeah, and the sink and all.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the applicant at this time?
And it is a family member, it is a disabled person, it is not under 55, over 55, she's 27, and she's also disabled. And, sorry about the tractor, but I don't think we're here for that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners have any indication of how they would like to proceed? Chair's prepared to entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to close the public hearing on 2 Bondi Road, application Z-23-56 Gina Medina, special permit for a 634 square foot accessory apartment.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Holmes seconded Mr. Timmerman's motion to close the public hearing. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Motion carries to close the public hearing. Now, as to the disposition of the application, Chair is prepared to entertain a motion relative to that as well.
Make a motion to approve 2 Bonnie Road, Z-23-56 Gina Medina, special permit with design review for a 634 square foot accessory apartment.
Mr. Timmerman's made the motion. Do we have a second to his motion? There is no second. So the motion does not carry. I think we could still make a motion to vote on this, and then people
Yeah.
could vote a different way. I think we
Yeah,
should
you
still
always have to make a
dispose of
motion.
it.
Or,
to
or
approve. You
do
always
we
have
have a
to. Yeah.
discussion?
No, you
Yes.
had a discussion after the motions, or we can do it.
You can't, no, but you have to have it seconded. If someone wants to
Yeah.
discuss it, just second the motion and we can proceed.
Yeah.
You can vote it any way you decide after that.
I see. Then I'll second.
Okay, we have Mr. Timmerman's motion to approve the application, seconded by Mrs. Armet. Is there any discussion? This is the time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the requirements are met by, you know, our regulations. Some of the things aren't our purview, you know. If the police have to come and everything, we really can't use that as part of our decision-making. This apartment's completely within the envelope of the house, so you can't really see a difference to the outside of the house, so it still looks like a single-family home from the outside. We've had issues before with other people trying to do accessory apartments where they started changing the envelope and it looks like, you know, a duplex, and that's not what this is.
I have a question. If the house is sold as a two-family house? Is it sold?
No.
Is it sold as a house
Single.
with
Single family with an accessory dwelling unit.
an accessory dwelling?
That's why we restrict the size of the apartment.
I see.
I mean, I've seen some in town, especially up here on Pocono Road, where there's 2 doors right next to each other and it looks like a duplex.
Mm.
And, you know, in my opinion, that should have never been allowed because it changes the flavor of the neighborhood. It looks like a duplex in a single-family home zone.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the application signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries, I believe, 3-2. Thank you. Next item up, B, 120 Obtuse Hill, Z-23-62. Carl Squitieri for Acacia Capuano, special permit with design review for 700 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16. Public hearing is set
I don't have that.
at October 26th, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to recuse myself from this application because I am a neighbor.
Okay. Did we have a second to the motion?
Second.
It's Prashandra.
Oh, second.
Second by Mr. Timmerman. It might take us a moment here. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting that recusal, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. I would probably only ask Commissioner Holmes that you have to leave the dais and either
Sure.
sit in the audience or in the hallway somewhere, wherever you feel more comfortable.
Wait in your car.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to raise Commissioner Lucia to a voting member in place of Commissioner Holmes for
Thank
this
you.
application.
Second.
Mr. Timmerman's made the motion to make Mr. Lucia a sitting member for this application. It's been seconded by Mr. Komar. All those in favor, or any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none. Mr. Lucia, you are now seated as a regular voting member for this application. With that said, I will read this into the record. This is a Brookfield Zoning Commission introduction to a public hearing for November 9th, 2023. This is a regular meeting of the Brookfield Zoning Commission. At this point in our agenda, we have scheduled a public hearing concerning the application of Carl Squitieri for Acacia Cupuano, 120 Obtuse Hill, Brookfield, application number Z-23-62, for a special permit with design review for 700 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16. Once again, for the formality, please allow us to introduce the members of the commission once again, starting with my far left.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Prashandra Kumar, Vice Chairman.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Thank you. We will open this public hearing by calling upon the commission secretary to read the legal notice of this hearing.
Can I refer to the fact that I already read it? This is the same legal notice as previous read in the earlier one, but this time we'll be covering Carl Squitieri for Acacia Cappuccino, 120 Obtuse Hill Road, to construct a 700 square foot accessory apartment.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman.
I should have read it.
Yeah.
This application was formally received by the commission on October 19th, 2023. The public hearing is only one aspect of the approval process and is for the purposes of accepting factual information and data bearing on this application and to allow expression of opinion by interested parties. Subsequent to this hearing, the commission has 65 days in which to render a decision on this proposal. The final decision may be in the form of approved as submitted, approved with stipulations, or denied. After reading into the record the correspondence received by the commission relative to this application, we will ask the applicant to present the application in detail. The presentation will be limited to 45 minutes. The chair will then entertain questions of clarification concerning the applicant's presentation. We will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Comments must be limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public will have one opportunity to speak during this segment of the hearing and may also submit their concerns in writing during the public hearing. During this segment, the commissioners may ask additional questions. The bylaws of the commission allow only for the presentation of similar positions in succession and preclude the intermixture of comments pro or con. All questions and comments must be directed through the chair. As you are recognized, please state your name and address so that your comments may be legally recorded. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. However, the commission is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application. And in view of the time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in not reiterating comments previously presented. After the public comments are received, the applicant will have the opportunity to comment and the time will be limited to 10 minutes. Are there any questions? We shall now ask the secretary to proceed with the reading of correspondence. do not see any correspondence in this file, so I don't think we will need to do that.
Me neither.
The chair is now prepared to hear the applicant's presentation.
I'm here proposing adding a
Could you
kitchen.
please just state your name and
My name's
address for the record?
Carl Squateri, 120 Obtuso Road. I'm
Thank
here
you.
to propose adding a kitchen in an already approved garage addition that we have done recently. That's pretty much the gist of it. Trying to get my mother in there. It's a little under 700 square feet. It's already framed out, done. The kitchen's just not in there.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners have any questions at this time?
Yes, this is a garage at present?
Yeah, it's a detached 5-car garage,
Oh, wow.
and it's split in the middle. Half of it is just a big open room. I collect vintage dirt bikes and ATVs. They're all in there. The other side is framed out for an accessory apartment with an entranceway going in the back half of it.
Any other questions at this time? Mr. Timmerman?
Is there any second floor on here? I noticed on the drawing, seemed to be indicating stairs.
Yeah,
Or is this
thi-
just the
this is-
outside?
This is the second floor. The garage is underneath it.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, there's a deck that goes up in the back with the entrance into the accessory apartment.
Oh, so the accessory apartment's on the second floor.
Correct.
And the first floor downstairs, you had mentioned you split it in half.
Oh, no, the first floor is just garages.
Oh, just garage.
Yeah.
And the second floor is split in half?
Second floor
Oh,
split
so
in
you
half.
actually have some vehicles upstairs on the second floor.
Dirt bikes.
Dirt bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you get them up there?
There's
Ride 'em up?
there's two ways to access in the back. It's split in the middle,
Mhm.
and there's 2 decks in the back, one on this side, one on this side. This side enters this side enters this side.
And is
This
it all
side is
built?
just a big open room. This side is framed out.
And this is second floor though, is there, I mean, for your dirt bikes, for example?
Well, right now it's full of parts, but
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna
And
put them in
is
there.
this on the slope,
It's about 8 steps.
oh, all right.
Yeah.
Is it a full second story?
Yes. It's 8-foot ceilings.
All right, thank you. Does the audience have any questions of clarification before we hear comments pro or con? The chair is now prepared to recognize,
I'm sorry, I have a question.
okay.
Are we requesting that kitchen be in? Is that going to change the zoning at all?
It shouldn't. It should just be a single family with an accessory apartment according to the rules that I read.
I'm sorry, can you state your name? Jacqueline Morgan. Larkin. And address 7 Windward Road. Thank you.
Does the audience have any further questions of clarification?
The second space that is to the right-hand side garage, you said has access from the rear. Is there any other access besides the staircase in the rear, the deck off the back that enters into that area?
No.
Can you please state your name and address?
James Williams, 119 Obtuso Road.
Thank you.
Any other questions of clarification?
I have.
On that?
What is the size of the lot?
Lot is 4.25 acres.
I have a question.
Please state your name and address.
Anthony Bambino, 119A Obtuso Road. Is there just one apartment in that garage?
One apartment.
Thank you.
So I'm a little confused. The garage is on the ground floor, but you're making it a duplex?
It's already built. It's, you pull in the driveway, 5-car bays like that. You go around the back. The driveway extends on the side, both sides of the building. You go around the back, there's a deck here, there's another deck here. The deck closest to the road enters the apartment. The accessory apartment, the deck further from the road is just, when you go in there, it's just a big open room. There's nothing in there except a whole bunch of my dirt bike stuff.
There's a downstairs and an upstairs.
Well, downstairs would be considered the garage, I guess.
Okay, and that stays a garage?
Yeah, no, that's a garage. It's got
Okay.
5 garage doors there.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
confused, sorry. So this apartment is upstairs?
Correct.
No question.
Thank you.
So to better understand, one half is an apartment and the second is your storage where you put your bikes.
That's it.
Okay, and you have any ventilation or anything in your storage section? Where you
No,
store
it's
your bike?
not even,
'Cause I
there's not
assume you're
even
gonna-
insulation on the walls in there. It's just open 2x6 framing.
Because I assume that's where you're gonna put your bike together and work on your bikes.
No, I do that in the garage.
Oh, you do
I
that,
was just
okay.
storing them up there.
Got you.
I don't have a question, but if you don't mind.
Yeah, just please again state your name and address.
James Williams. You said you're making this for your mom?
Yes,
If you don't mind me asking, how old is your mom?
61 years old.
Is she gonna have a hard time getting up and down those stairs again?
Absolutely not.
Well, some people do.
That's young.
I know.
Yeah.
Just state your name and address again, please.
Jacqueline Larkin at 7 Woodwood. Was initially there was the garage and the garage expansion. Did the original garage also have the apartment above it?
It had the apartment without the kitchen. So everything was approved besides the kitchen. The framing and everything was on the original plans, and the kitchen area was there, just didn't have a kitchen drawn in place.
Was the Jacqueline Larkin again? And it was 8-foot ceilings in the apartment before. I moved in.
Correct, the
not
building
too
is
long ago.
30, the total with the roof is, I think, about 30 feet tall.
May I ask what kind of stove you're going to have?
Electric.
Electric.
Thank you.
When was this originally approved without the kitchen?
A while ago, had to be at least a year ago. I've been going at this for a while now.
The applicant received a variance to do the addition of the couple-car garage to ZBA. Because it was a pre-existing building that was non-conforming, we added on to it. So ZBA, it granted a variance.
For a garage, but not an apartment?
Exactly. That's why the applicant's here now for the apartment.
One more question, James Williams again. Was the original intent when you did expand your garage, it was a pretty extensive addition you put on your garage, which I'm not against, but was the original intention to have an apartment above?
Yes,
And wouldn't the original application have that noted in there?
at the time, I didn't realize that I had to get a separate variance for the kitchen. So at the last variance board meeting, I had mentioned that, and they said that I could get that approved so I can start building and then come back and do, because the kitchen is what determines whether it's an actual apartment or not, from what I understood at that time. So I just had that approved. Now that it's done, I'm coming for the second part of it.
I have a question. Shauna Renna, 119 Obtuse Hill Road. The property currently has a second dwelling on it, a 1,400 square foot in-law cottage that was used by the previous owners for the last 25 years since I lived there as their in-law apartment.
Okay,
Why
that's,
do we need another dwelling on that property?
that house has been on that property. First of all,
Correct.
it's a non-conforming house that's grandfathered in. That house, that property is considered a single-family house. That house has been there since the 1800s.
Correct, so is mine. So meaning, so why do we need another one for an in-law? So we
Because,
already have one.
because I want to move my mother in this apartment, and this is actually gonna make the property an accessory, a single family with accessory. That house is moot, it doesn't even count.
We already had one.
Yeah, but that doesn't count as that, it's just there. It's,
Okay.
Is anybody living in it?
yes,
Is,
my wife's parents live in there. It's they call it on the plot plans, or they call it the carriage house. It's been there, when we bought the property, that's how it was explained to us, that it's been there for so long, it's just there.
Okay. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in favor of this application. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application? I see none. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in opposition to this application. Please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Julia Mullen, 4 Winwood Road. I just want to thank everybody on the board. I know this is a thankless job. I'm just here to voice my concerns for the conversion of 120 turning into a single-family conversion. I was just curious, does the apartment meet the current regulations? Because when I had called the building inspector on this October 27th, they had said that a single-family conversion could be approved if it was in an attached garage, but I believe 120 has a detached garage. And my other question would be, in the 2021 minutes, I read the apartment was for mother-in-law or mom, which I think is wonderful. I was just wondering, could she live there without the property title changing? My concern is for the future, if the property is sold, and what that has an effect on with the school district. I know when the new school was built, I don't think much was taken in account for the growing apartments, and it is a big concern of mine. I have 3 sons, and one of my sons at CLES has 26, 27 kids in one class. So I'm just more so concerned with the future, if it will affect our school district, because I am concerned. I think that we're already short 1 kindergarten class for CLES this coming year, and I could be wrong, but that's my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Again, please come to the podium, state name and address for the record.
My name's Jacqueline Larkin from 7 Winwood. I've lived on 7 Winwood for around 5 years. I've lived in Brookfield for almost 32 years. I love the community that exists on our little road. We take care of each other. We've gotten through storms together. I think I brought your wife and you a meal when you had your baby recently this summer. And I really admire the fact that you want to bring your in-laws or your parents to live with you. And I will legally say on the record, if I had the means to do so, I would do that myself. I appreciate that. My concern is for the future on what happens to your house down the road if this adds, as Julia mentioned, to our community. My concern is also for the garage, which I don't have a view of from my own property. I only occasionally drive by it, but it does look bigger than a garage with 1 story on top of it. It looks like it is a 5-car garage with 2 stories on top of it. I looked it up on Zillow right now. I don't know if the board would like to see a picture of that.
Rain was in there today, so.
Or you?
I have it as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, I'd like to see a picture.
So it just looks bigger than that. There you go. And I think my concern is more, when that time comes, we hope you stay in the community for a long time because it's really nice. But I think the concern is, if the time comes to sell this property, is it going to go from 1 family to a 2 or 3 family property
Not the house.
with multiple people? Yeah, that's a picture of the garage.
You could pass it down.
Thank you.
It's a hotel.
Thank you.
Mike, did you see it?
I got the gist of it. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
I will still go on. I'm new to this. I learned a lot about what a house looks like on the outside and the apartment that doesn't change the outside of the house. I thought that was very interesting. I'm wondering if this does get approved right now, what this would mean for this garage apartment structure in the future. If this current structure is approved, in the future, could that closet area and the 5-bay garage below be converted into living space? So that's also a concern I have. My concerns are not what is happening at that residence now, but what is happening in the future.
Thank you.
That picture looked like it was attached.
It's not, they're separate.
I think that's just the garage you're looking at.
That
Our
was the
garage.
garage? Yes. Oh, I thought it was the house.
Guess I'll speak. I'm Shauna Renna, 119 Obtuse Hill Road. I've been there for 25 years, love the area, my kids went to school here. Second, my problem is it's very intrusive. It looks like a duplex, and it is at the bottom of my driveway. He is probably right on the easement on the state road, so it is only about 25 feet off the main road. So it's not where it's hidden up and back. And my other thing is, I understand in-law apartments, but there was already one on the property, whether grandfather claused in or not. Does that open up for all of us to put my grandparents, my in-laws, his parents? Do we all of a sudden get to build 5 of them on our property as long as we have the acreage? I have 6 acres. How many can I build then? So that's what my president is. How many, if it was further back, not intrusive, we might think of it differently. But the minute you're at your bottom of your driveway, that's all you see is, it looks like a duplex, another home on the property. Okay.
Thank you.
Julia Mullen, 4
Didn't
Winwood
you already
Road.
speak?
I'm sorry.
Didn't
Yes.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did already speak. I forgot to, I was going to ask the board if I could present just some signatures of people who were concerned with the conversion.
Will it be brief?
It's just a piece of paper I was
Okay.
just going to give to the
We'll
board.
allow it.
May I approach?
Yes. Thank you. Why don't you explain to us what you're giving us?
It's just a list of my close neighbors, surrounding neighbors that were just concerned with what the conversion means for the neighborhood. And if other people could do that in the future, and what would happen if the property is sold. Just like an overall concern. That's all. Thank you.
James Williams, I don't know if I'm free to speak yet, but
Please proceed.
I only have a couple of concerns, and it involves the future as well. I think we've heard this, and I'm going to reiterate it. I don't oppose to the fact that this gentleman wants to put his mother or his in-laws in a dwelling on his property. I think that's great. My concern is what happens when he sells this house, or let's say, God forbid, his mom decides that she wants to move out of this location, or what have you. What happens to that apartment now? Does he get to rent it out to whoever he desires? And at that point, where do we go with our neighborhoods from here? Is this the precedence we're setting for Brookfield, Connecticut, which I find to be a very rural, single-family home setting? This isn't Waterbury or Danbury, it's Brookfield, Connecticut. It's always been that. Where are we going from here? That's all I want to know. And again, I'm not against the building. I'm all for the garage space. I'm all about garages. I collect cars myself. But it's the future that I'm more concerned about. And where does it go from here? Because as Shauna said, we have 6 acres. Am I going to get approved tomorrow for 3 of these buildings on my property so I can rent them out to whoever I want? Because I could generate a lot of income if I do that. So is that where we're headed? And that's really my concern. I left Danbury for a reason. This is part of the reason.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in
Sorry,
opposition
sir,
to
the
the
reason why I'm
application?
laughing, I got in a bunch of trouble for saying Danbury, so, you know, that's why I'm laughing.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi there, Dan Feely, 3 Winwood Road. So I actually, well, 25 years ago, we built a house, and we have an in-law apartment. And we followed all the rules. Before we actually built, we came here and had you guys approve it. And I'm worried the same reason. It seems like what this gentleman said before, it's like zoning creep, where someone will expand a garage. And actually, I've lived there, again, 25 years. The Arragis that owned it before, I think they've done expansions. So this property is continuously being expanded on. And it was already expanded for a garage, which we're like, all right, they're gonna put a whole bunch of cars or do work there. And now there's an apartment on top of it. So it just doesn't seem like the proper procedures. And yeah, I'm worried about what happens when it's done. So, and then what does he do with the property when he sells it, or can it be turned into a multifamily dwelling that's separate, however that works? Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, well, let's finish this, see if there's anyone else who wants to speak in opposition to the application. If there is no one, then we'll move to commissioners' comments and questions. So I don't see anyone else wanting to speak. Please, Ms. Arnett, whatever you'd like to say.
How many square feet is this garage?
1,400.
Up and down?
No, the base is 14, the upstairs is 14.
So 2,800 square feet.
Correct.
How big's your house?
4,600 square feet.
This time also, if you'd like, you can have 10 minutes to
Oh, as far as
summarize or rebut or
as far as people being concerned about what's happening in the future or the legality of it, when I applied for the application to build the garage and put the apartment above it, it was explained to me by town officials that you legally can have in the town of Brookfield an accessory apartment as long as it falls in between 600 and 800 square feet, and you follow the criteria of somebody has to be 55 years or older, they have to be a relative, they have to be like a helping hand of a relative, and there was a couple other stipulations. So, I mean, I followed everything I was supposed to follow, and I don't really see what the concern is about what's going to happen in the future, because as far as I know, anybody is allowed to have an accessory apartment if they go through the proper procedures.
Absolutely, but it has to attach, not detach.
That's not what I was told when I applied for the application.
No?
No, if you look at 3.16 D.3, conversion of an existing outbuilding into an accessory apartment, where in the commission is not feasible to connect the outbuilding to the main house, will be allowed subject to provisions of this section. So that is,
What page are you?
my page numbers might be different than yours, but 74 or around there. So, so as I mentioned before in the previous one, there's a lot of restrictions and requirements for an accessory apartment, and they stay that way. And by the way, there's only one allowed per property. The only question is about this pre-existing non-conforming. I almost would like to get an attorney's opinion on what that represents versus an accessory apartment. So that's kind of like an interesting, odd thing. I'd almost like to get them to weigh in. We don't, in my opinion, we probably should continue and ask the attorneys, what about that? And does that have any bearing on this application? Because it's grandfathered in. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I mean, that's what they're there for, right?
Good points. Anyone else have any comments or questions, or if anything further you'd want?
Well, I mean, as far as that goes, I mean,
That portion of the meeting is over now. The audience can't speak any further, sorry.
as far as that, well, what you said goes, I mean, when we bought the house, it was explained to us as that was just a carriage house, and it is not an accessory apartment. It is not a single family with an accessory apartment. It just doesn't even exist on the zoning. It's just there because it's been there for so long. That's part of the reason why we actually bought the house, because it is just a single family home, and that's what it was considered as.
It's an odd situation where you
Yeah.
have two single-family homes on one piece of property. Even though it's grandfathered in from, 100 of years ago or whatever it was, it's still, it's a twist, so, I don't have the attorney wherewithal to decide is that good or not, and how does it affect, it might not affect it at all. I guess that's what I wanna find out.
If it's sold, can that house be rented out?
With the other house?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's another good question for the attorney. That's a weird
And can the
situation.
apartment be rented out since it's separate from the home?
Yes, and it can be rented out as long as it meets all these requirements. Over 55, elderly, or a family member. Of course, you don't have to charge rent to your family member, but you could. Disabled, and I forget what the last one was, but it's on the application here. Oh, those are really only three. Actually, there is one last thing. If you deed it as affordable,
Deed restriction.
a deed restriction, that's like 30 or 40 years now. I don't think anybody does that, but generally they're pretty affordable anyway.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? I'm hearing that it sounds like the comfort level would be greater if we had some legal expertise on guidance because of the unique facts in this particular case.
Yeah.
So with that being said, would you like to make a motion relative to the continuation
Yeah,
until such time?
I'd like to make a motion to continue 120 Obtuse Hill Road, application Z-23-62. Special permit with design review for a 700 square foot accessory apartment.
Mr. Timmerman's made the motion. Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Armet has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to continue this matter, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? There are none. This matter will now be continued until our next regular meeting, which is on December 14th, 2023. Thank you.
Nice.
We should cheer. We need to make motion to cheer Ms. Holmes back in the
Yes. This time, we'd be happy to entertain a motion to return Commissioner Holmes.
I second.
We'll entertain a motion. Who
I'll
made
make
the
that motion.
Oh, you made a motion?
So moved. And you,
Mr. Timmerman's made the motion to return Mrs. Holmes to the regular voting status. It's been seconded by Mr. Komar. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? There are none. Mrs. Holmes may now be seated back as a regular voting member of the commission. Thank you, Mr. Lucia. Next item, number 7, old business. There is none. So we'll move to number 8, new business. Item A, revised draft of the 2024 zoning meeting calendar. We did revise it last time, but we were so enthusiastic, we did it on the wrong week. So it should be March 14th, the second Thursday of the month, and March 28th. So if we can get a motion to approve the revised submission, we can approve that finally for next year. Do we have one?
checking these March ones. They're just weird because of the leap year.
I already checked them. but-
I make a motion to approve the draft commission meeting calendar for 2024.
Second.
Mr. Komar seconded Mr. Timmerman's motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those who are opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is number 9, tabled items. A, draft regulation change, cannabis sales and distribution, an amended draft. The commissioners may recall at our last meeting, we had referred this over to the land use director for her review and input, and also for further legal review after that. So since she is not here tonight, I think we probably will just need to continue to monitor that till our next meeting. Mr. Lucia?
I have one small comment. Watched the last video, last meeting, and there was a question about how the tax is collected. It doesn't actually go to the state directly. Each month, a retailer files a form to the state, the Department of Revenue Services. Then the Department of Revenue Services notifies a municipality of what has transpired and what taxes are owed, at the end of the month. Then the municipality has 60 days to send an invoice to the retailer. The retailer then pays the municipality directly. So the state's just there for record keeping. There's no triangle of money transfer. So.
Thank you.
Mike, are you saying that the retailer holds on to the money
In
and
a
waits
tru-
for the invoice to come through?
It's in a trust.
On the trust.
This is General Statute
Well, look at you.
12-330 MM. Well, there was questions, so.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that.
Thank you, Mike. And also item B, revision of zoning fee schedule. Similarly, the land use director was making some final edits to share, but since she's not here to present tonight, I think we'll probably just continue that till our next meeting as well. Unless anyone wants to comment on that further. Okay, thank you. Item 10, commissioner comments and informal discussion. If I may, then I guess I will take the chairman's prerogative and do something that was overlooked at our last meeting to thank Mr. Andrew Kame, who happens to be sitting in our audience, for his long service that was cut short. Last time was his last meeting. His term just ended on this Tuesday past, so thank you for all of that. And I think tonight will be the last meeting night for 2 other members, Mr. Prashendra Komar and Mrs. Phoebe Holmes as well. So this is it. Thank you both as well for your service.
We'll miss you.
Sad. It's a strange,
That's really
it's a
sad.
strange night.
This is such a good board.
It does feel like
Really
that.
does.
Well, we have
We've
good
done a lot of
attendance.
good work.
Yeah.
We really
Yeah, we have
have.
good
We've done a lot of good work.
And then after that, if anyone doesn't have anything further to say, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Mrs. Arment has made the motion. Do we have a second? Mrs. Holmes, why don't you do it for old time's sake?
Second.
Mrs. Holmes has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, our next meeting is December 14th.